Good afternoon, Book Passage customers. Thank you so much for tuning in, joining us for our Conversations with Authors, our virtual events. We are very thrilled that you are spending an hour with us this afternoon. My name is Cheryl Bronstein. I am one of the event coordinators here at Book Passage. And again, thank you so much for joining us. If you are new to Book Passage, a big hearty welcome. And if you are a frequent viewer or frequent customer, well, welcome back. And thank you so much for your loyalty and your patronage. Book Passage is so grateful for all of our loyal customers out there. Thank you so much for supporting Book Passage and supporting independent bookstores. Book Passage has two locations. We have our beautiful store in Corte Madera, and we also have our store in the San Francisco Ferry Building. And given the holidays, both stores are open 7 days a week. So come on in. You can browse, buy your books there. You can call us on the phone, and we actually answer the phone in person. You can buy your books over the phone, or of course, look at our website and order that way. However it works for you, we are very thrilled to help you shop for amazing books. And again, Book Passage supports incredible authors like our event today. So if we can do these free events because you buy your books from Book Passage. So thank you so much for all of your support, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can keep providing amazing content to you. Now, Book Passage has a very active winter schedule. We've got a lot of things on the docket, and I'm just going to mention a few of the exciting events that we have coming up. This Saturday at 1 p.m., we have the amazing author, novelist, Jane Smiley. She will be in our Corte Madera store for a special signing of her new novel, A Dangerous Business. And this is a free event, so just come on in. You can meet her, have your picture with her, and get a beautiful signed edition for the holidays. On January 21st, we have an in-person event with Deb Perlman of Smitten Kitchen, cookbook author. And Deb will be discussing her newest cookbook, Smitten Kitchen Keepers. This event will take place at 1 p.m. in our Corte Madera store, and tickets are still available. So please check out our online calendar. We do not want you to miss any of the amazing in-store virtual events, classes, all kinds of things we have going on at our Book Passage community. At Book Passage, our mission is to enrich, engage, and inspire. And Book Passage has been a Bay Area institution for over 40 years, as well as a family-owned business. So thank you so much for all of our loyal customers out there. We look forward to serving you for another 40 years. Well, this afternoon, Born to Run 2 follows the incredible success of Born to Run, Christopher McDougall's first bestseller that took the athletic world by storm. McDougall recounts his quest to understand the superhuman ultra runners with adrenaline-pumped writing, humor, and a distinct voice. Now, Born to Run 2 is a practical guide stressing fundamentals like what I call the F's: food, fitness, focus, footwear, fun, family. You can probably think of others. The text includes a 90-day run free program, plus numerous diagrams, strength exercises, and plenty of beautiful color photos. This newest edition will appeal to new runners, old runners, and energize those recovering from injuries. Chris and Eric continue their impassioned mantra that humans were born to run. Christopher McDougall covered wars in Rwanda and Angola as a foreign correspondent for the Associated Press before writing his best-selling book, Born to Run. His fascination with limits of human potential led to other works, Running with Sherman, which was a huge seller and continues to be at Book Passage, and Natural Born Heroes. His Outside Magazine web series, Art of the Hero, has a large fan following. And he is joined today by Eric Orton. Eric experienced with Terra Humera and his, I hope I said that right, and his study of running, human performance, strength, and conditioning have led him to the cutting edge of sport and made him a go-to for athletes everywhere. The author of The Cool Impossible and a former fitness director for the University of Colorado Health Science Center, Orton personally trains athletes from recreational racers to elite ultra marathoners. He is lucky enough to live in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and we are so glad he is joining us today. So please welcome to our Book Passage virtual stage two superstar athletes, coaches, their writers, Christopher McDougall and Eric Orton. Welcome.
Thanks, Cheryl. Good to see you guys again.
Yep.
And I am so delighted to actually have an event at Book Passage where I'm not running through the door sweaty at the last second. Every single time I've done an event there, we've always done a run beforehand. And usually what happens, right, Eric, with these runs is that you start to run and you start to chat with people and you get to know them and you completely forget that there's actually a bookstore full of chairs and a microphone waiting for you back there until suddenly you realize, oh my God, I'm 2 miles away and started 5 minutes ago. So that's one thing about the digital age. It has gotten me on schedule and much more hygienic.
Well, and all these California events brings this all thing full circle. It makes me want to be back in California running with you.
Yeah, right. It's been a while. So for those of you who have not yet dipped into Born to Run 2, one of the key moments took place in Colton at our friend Pat Sweeney's nudist ranch where he lives, because Eric and I, one of our, I'm just stretching forward to get a copy of the book, one of our number one priorities when we started to envision this book was we wanted to make sure that we made it as representative of the runners that we know as possible. And not the blonde ponytails that you see on the cover of Runner's World all the time. And, nothing personal against people with blonde ponytails, but you know what? You've gotten enough magazine covers in your lifetime. It's time for other people to take the front of the stage. And so we decided before we even wrote the book, we were going to get together for a photo shoot. And we wanted to bring together as many people as possible. Our friends who run with prosthetics, our friends who are different ages, different gender identifications. We wanted to get everyone together to create this, for instance, this one shot, and also, photos throughout the book of the kind of people you typically may not see as represented as they should be in the running press. And so we got together for that 3-day photo shoot in Colton, California. We did it at our friend Pat Sweeney's nudist ranch because it gave us the privacy and the background. And it ended up turning into this really cool, raucous experience.
Yeah, and I think you just nailed it. This, not only this experience, but the whole book, it's for everybody and everybody. And that's what, I'm really excited about to get this out there, yesterday and now today and beyond, is that this is going to help so many people. And I'm anxious to dive into how it helped you and how we're going to help a lot of people.
It's kind of funny because there's a guy named Buzz Burrell, and Buzz is a real old school OG ultra runner back from the early days, back from the 70s and 80s. And he got a copy of the book. And I was kind of bracing myself when I saw my phone, oh, it's Buzz Burrell, because there's really nothing about this sport that this guy hasn't known for years. And that's the kind of Supreme Court justice you don't really want to stand in front of, is a guy named Buzz Burrell. And he called up and he was actually kind of raving. And he was saying that this is all the stuff that I kept waiting for other people to figure out. Like, because he's now, how old would you say he is? He's got to be pushing 80, right?
He's got to be pushing close to 75, if not.
Yeah.
And like you said, he's done everything. He's pioneered, mountain running and the, scrambling and what we now know as FKTs. And he and his whole gang were pioneers of that way back in the day in Boulder.
Yeah, when there were no races, they were creating these crazy old runs and heading off into places where no one knew where they were going and whether they're going to make it back. And I mean, he created the ultimate direction. He created this dominant hydration system because there are no water bottles back when he was starting. And but what Buzz was saying was all these kind of things too, about how to dial in your food and your form, your footwear. And for him to come to us and say, yeah, we wore minimalist footwear because he didn't want to be on some big mushy chunk of foam when you're out there running on the front range. you had to have your diet figured out because there weren't aid stations. No one was handing you a goo. There weren't, power bars you put in your pocket. You had to find real food and dial it in to nourish your day and your adventures. Your fitness, because, when you're running long distances deep into your old age, your entire body's got to be fit. You can't just be, running hamster wheeling. And so for Buzz to say that this is a book that he valued, to me was just, the clouds opening up and a sunbeam from heaven just came down on me. I mean, Buzz, he told me he did 15 races in 6 months last year, which is 75 years old. Tells me that this guy's got insane durability.
Now, I hope I'm not aging him by 10 years.
Well, it's one way or the other. Either he's 65.
I'm just guessing.
And running has aged in 10 years, or he's 75 and he's looking good for his age. It's one of those two.
Yeah. Because, I brushed shoulders with him way back in the 90s when this was just, all the fun of backyard adventures in Boulder and Denver and Colorado. And so, yeah, he's been hitting it hard for as long as I've been kind of into this groove, so and like you said, that's a Supreme Court justice approval, and it's so good to hear that, because especially the old guard, the old school, to have that open mind of what we're proposing to and to just really acknowledge. So that's great on Buzz.
Yeah, great on Buzz. Hey, before I forget too, so as Cheryl pointed out, look, you can buy your books anywhere. There's a reason why we're talking to you right now. It's because of Book Passage. When Born to Run first came out, it was universally ignored. It was not reviewed. I couldn't beg my way onto the radio. I got no publicity whatsoever. And the only reason it survived at all, because, books disappear. They're out for 2 weeks. If nobody's buying them, they're gone from the shelves. But independent bookstores like Book Passage found this book, and people who worked in the stores read Born to Run and kind of dug it and invited me to come in and give talks. And so I was at Book Passage giving a talk before anybody ever heard of Born to Run. And that's the only reason why it ever became a popular book. So if you're going to buy a book, buy it from the people that are bringing these books to you. And if you want a signed copy, I'm going to be sending today a bunch of autographed book plates out to Book Passage. I'm going to overnight them so they're there before the weekend. So if anybody wants an autographed copy as a Christmas gift, I mean, right? How cool. This is the UK version. Eric's got the US version. And anyway, so go to Book Passage. I will send those signed book plates. You can get an autographed book to give to the runner in your life, and support a bookstore that I think is just crucial to keeping these kind of books in your hands. Hey, dude, all right, I just want to deviate. We just got a question pop in, which I find is a really good orientation point. Someone said, what's your advice for older runners, those over 60 who have joint issues, stamina issues, etc.? It's the etc. that's catching my eye, because it's like the list is endless. But we were just talking about Buzz Burrell, who's 75 and out there cranking ultras. Clearly, no stamina issues, joint issues, no etc. And I think the reason why is, see what you think about this, Eric. I think runners who came of age in the pre-ultra cushioning, the pre-stability, the pre-goos and gel era learned certain time-tested techniques that basically made them immune from all the crap that other people are suffering.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, again, knowing a lot about Buzz specifically, I know the type of training he's doing, and maybe more importantly, and what kind of points back to the book, is the type of terrain that he is on. He's scrambling, he's going up and down, he's wearing minimal shoes to do this because he needs to feel the rock to scramble and scale the flat irons of Boulder, so he's not able to do that in a built up shoe. But from my coaching geek side of things, a lot of what is in the book and what I've found that adds to longevity, and more importantly, being able to get stronger as you age, is the exercises that we put in mimic a lot of the demands and the benefits that trail runners get from running up and down mountains. Running downhill can be very, very good for you. very, very good strength, just like our leg stiffeners in the book. So a lot of those exercises have gone in to mimic what we need, or what every runner needs as we get older, to remain healthy, to improve our ability. And I'll say to the et cetera part of this is that there's always a way to get better. There's always a way to get stronger. And I think, and I've observed it with myself, is that if I start to feel something, a wobble, as we call them in the book, I have to be very, very attentive to my thinking of, okay, do I automatically go to, is it because I'm getting older? Or have I been writing a book for a year and sat on my ass for a year? And it's so very easy for me to say, oh yeah, I'm getting older. But no, it's really because I've just sat more than I'm used to. And I can get that back. And so now I'll turn it to you. We're 14 years since Born to Run, and you and I first started to work together. You're a better runner now as you got older. So I think that's the perfect segue to answering this question, is what has helped you to feel better, become a better runner as you've gotten older?
I'm like looking through one of these pictures right now in the book, because one of the most startling and flattering things I've ever heard in my life was when we were doing this photo shoot with, these runners, these are all accomplished runners, every one of them. And at one point you turned to me and said, you got the best form out here. And I'm like, really? I felt like Miss America. Like, really? You're going to give me the crown? And I think at first I was like, well, Eric's a nice guy.
I'm not blowing it up. You know, blowing it up, you know what?
Yeah. You don't do that. So my first thought, he's being a nice guy. And I thought, no, that's not Eric. That's not in his DNA at all. And then you pointed out that we have a friend, Chris Bender, who is a Hollywood producer, and he came out to hang with us. And when Chris wasn't there, he said, yeah, your only competition for best form is Bender. And we are both disciples of yours. And I think that what you zeroed in on is that for us, form is the thing we're reaching for most. And that's what we're striving for. You've created a bunch of musicians who are willing to take their time to learn the chords. We're not just trying to bang out strums. We're taking our time to actually learn how the instrument is played. And that's something that you impressed on us. And ordinarily, I would think that kind of painstaking attention to detail would be boring. But to me, that's like the most interesting and exciting stuff. And so I think that's the reason why that 15 years or so after this experiment started, where you and I started to work together, I think what's really paid off for me is that, oh yeah, that attention to form, that's the golden secret. Like, that's what the magic is. Now, I remember the first time we were in Denver City Park, and you told me to start to sprint, and I was just like bewildered. Like, wait, sprint? No, if you run, you can't sprint. Nobody goes full speed. You'll break down. And you're like, no, that's part of the problem. People are not exploring their gear range. They're not really showing themselves how to run properly.
And I think there's so much that we can pack into this one question. Our first question is that, I think they asked, they have joint issues. Well, sprinting, if done right, 8, 10, 15 seconds, that's in the 90-day program in the book, that produces chemicals in our body that provide lubrication. So here we can do something that takes 8, 10, 15 seconds that feels good, that provides lubrication that can help our joints. So it's a lot of intuitive things that can really help us to answer this question.
I think we need to do a sequel, Born to Run, etc.
Exactly.
All those et ceteras. So that was the thing to me. When you and I started working together, it was purely by accident. I was supposed to be doing something completely different. I've been assigned by Men's Journal to interview you about your sort of cross-pollination technique of learning things from paddlers that can apply to rock climbers, and from hockey players that can apply to swimmers. And just by chance, I had just come back from the Copper Canyon. I had met Caballo Blanco. I had witnessed the Tarahumara, and I had that spectator envy of being like, oh man, I wish I could run like those people. And so I come back and I meet you, and I just had that experience, and I was expressing that like, I met the Tarahumara, and it must be so cool to be able to run like that. And you're like, whoa, you saw them? Because that had been your quest. And then secondly, you're like, absolutely you can run like them. They are not doing anything that everybody can't do. And I completely did not believe you. But what got the wheels turning was you say, hey man, take your shoes off. Let's just go barefoot. Let's do some sprints. And these two things, which to me were completely the opposite of everything I'd ever read about running. Number one, you need the right shoes or you'll get hurt. And number two, take it slow, take it easy, speed kills. And you instantly reverse both of those things. Go barefoot, let's do some sprints. And my brain is telling me this is a disaster. And then my body's like, holy crap, this feels really good.
And with that, what's going on is that all we're doing is adding variety. And, you know, again, if we're going back to this question, or maybe speaking to a veteran runner who's starting to feel aches and pains, well, what happens with most veteran runners? We kind of drift into doing what we enjoy or what we're good at and do it the same thing all the time because it's kind of what's maybe fun for us. But we get away from that variety that the Tarahumara have and that all good training programs should have: sprints, hills, you know, going long, going easy. All of that is what we put into your program for you to start. But, you know, with that variety, you're able to catapult your running in a matter of a couple of weeks to beyond what you ever thought would be possible, which continued to spiral into that confidence that gave you for going into the Copper Canyon. So I think adding variety is so important. So we're always shocking the system in a good way.
Yeah. You know, we should back up a little bit and tell people, just as a refresher, what's going on. So, you know, Born to Run was an adventure story, really, about my attempt to learn from the Tarahumara, who live deep in the Copper Canyons, a culture which has remained largely isolated from the modern world, that to this day still run in homemade sandals, the same kind you'd see like, you know, Spartacus wear, and that can run these extraordinarily long distances, hundreds of miles on very tough canyon terrain. And they're still doing it deep in the old age. And when I learned about the Tarahumara and was able to spend time with them, I'm kind of looking at them thinking, wait a second, what's going on here? You know, we're told that running's bad for the body, it's bad for the knees, you need the special shoes, don't do too much, don't go too fast. And I'm watching these guys. Well, these guys are 75, 80 years old, and they're blazing up and down these mountains, banging out multiple marathons in homemade shoes, and they're not getting hurt. So what is going on? If running is bad for the body, why is it bad for my body and not bad for their body? And that's when you tipped me off. Again, something which should have been obvious, but it was kind of hiding in plain sight. You change the behavior, you change the outcome. So much of what we have with running is packaged into quick solutions. You know, buy this shoe, buy this device, buy this gel pack, buy this goo, as opposed to change what you're doing physically. And also, and this is a major thing that you taught me, is understand the impulses you're getting from your body. You know, that old cliche, well, you know, listen to your body. Well, I don't know what my body's saying. My body's telling me, want some Haagen-Dazs, you know? Like, if I listened to my body, dude, I would have been dead 10 years ago. What we have to do is get back to that factory preset where we understand the response that we feel. And so that's one reason why we advocate for a minimal shoe. You're actually going to feel the ground, and that ground response is going to tell you something. And so ultimately, you know, when we decided to do Born to Run 2, I was like, you know, dude, this is the book that I wish had existed back when we started this adventure. You know, if there was a book that could tell me how to really pick out shoes, how to run with my dog, how to run with a baby jogger, how to run with friends and a spouse in a way that's beneficial, that would have been the magic charm.
And two things. My favorite quote in the book is when you say, don't listen to your body, tell your body what you want it to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with that, where I'm really excited from the coaching side of things goes into our next question about what are some of your favorite stretches after a running workout? And so with everything you just said, my response to that is strike that word stretching and replace it with movement. Replace it with how you feel. Replace it with the feel of the ground. And once we create equilibrium in how we use our body, we no longer have the tug and pull and have to stretch. So if you have to stretch, that's telling you something, and the remedies in this book.
It's funny, Eric, because so today I was going through some video that we shot with Rich Roll. Rich Roll wrote Finding Ultra. He has a hugely popular podcast that looks at human capability and wellness. And Rich himself is a fantastically fit guy, but he's made a lifelong obsession with understanding how the human body can perform to the maximum. And while we were doing an interview with him, he turned around and goes, yeah, I can't run anymore. Like my leg hurts, my back hurts, and I could barely walk. And what was interesting about that was you took him outside and you had him just skip. And I'm watching these videos like, holy crap, Rich Roll can't skip. And, and to me, like that was one of your major things. So here's a great picture of the book. This is our friend Marcus Renty skipping. And when someone said, hey, what's like the best stretch you recommend? And you say, forget stretching, try some skipping. And so this is what I love is that if you told me to do the stretches, you told me to do yoga, there's no way I ain't going to do it. You told me to go outside and skip, absolutely. So, but it was interesting to me how some of these movement patterns that are so basic to children, because we spend so much time immobilizing our chair, we just forget. So yeah, with Rich, he could not sequence his arms with his legs, so he could skip.
Yeah, and that's the exciting thing is that not only is skipping the diagnostic to let you know what's going on, it's also the remedy. So you're practicing the diagnostic, and just through time, you're just reprogramming, rebooting, making that factory reset that we talk about for the brain. And that's a lot about what it is. It's not about stretching. It's about reprogramming the brain to fire and relax muscles in a proper way. And we should not have to stretch.
Yeah, I agree with you. So we have our friend Julie Angel, who's down in Carlsbad, and she created what she calls movement snacks. And again, I love this because I feel this is exercises that were personally created for me, someone with a completely limited attention span and who will never do anything unless I actually kind of feel like it. And so movement snacks are things like bear crawls, where you're balanced on your hands and your feet, and you just crawl. It's called quadrupedal movement, where you just crawl like a bear. And a lot of parkour athletes, before they go out and do those kind of high-flying antics, they'll just form in a big circle, and they will bear crawl to the center of the circle, and they'll all high-five, and they'll bear crawl back out again, and then you stand up, and now your entire chain from head to toe has been loosened. It's been extended. You've synced up that chain of movement, so your left and your right are now awake and ready to move in synchronicity and harmony. You could spend hours doing yoga poses, or you can spend 15 seconds doing a bear crawl, and you'll be better off with the bear crawl.
And I just heard from a reader this morning. She chimed in and said, "Love the book, and my dog loved me while I was doing my bear crawl this morning before my run." So who would have known?
That is, now that you mentioned it, of course, it makes perfect sense. The dog's like, finally, an exercise for me. Yeah. Hey, so, I think one thing that people struggle with, a person's asking a question about whether you get the same benefits from walking and running or combination. And the fact that those two things are separate, or that there's a cause for concern, it reminds me that one of the difficulties that people face with running is it has become so associated with pain and injury and anxiety, whether you're doing it right, whether I'm going to get hurt, whether I have the right stuff. And, you and I were in New York, in Chinatown, for a terrific group called Run for Chinatown. And it is a group that formed during the pandemic to provide support and solidarity for Asian Americans who at the time were getting a lot of grief from idiots. And I didn't use the F word, which I'm kind of proud of myself, although I feel like it was justified. Anyway, in Run for Chinatown, it has grown into a massive group, with sometimes 100 or more runners turning out on Monday night to run through the streets of Chinatown. It's fantastic. But we were talking to the creator, Leland Yu, in a park. And as we were talking, he was asking us some sort of nuanced questions about running for him. And as we're talking, this like little kid just comes flashing by the park, just like sprinting for glory. And I felt like every question you want to ask, like that kid is answered. He's not stretching. He's not warming up. He probably wasn't even wearing shoes. He didn't care what his pace was or his heart rate. He was just running because it felt fantastic, and he wasn't worried about getting hurt. And that's what we're trying to restore to the sport of running, the sense of like, it can be joyful, it can be fun, and it doesn't have to be fear-based.
And it doesn't have to, there's a question here about running through pain. I mean, why would you want to run through pain? I mean, like you said earlier on, change the behavior to change the outcome. And, going back to the walking combination too, is that walking is how the Tarahumara get their long endurance training in, because they run, or they live in the canyon, so they can't go out for a nice easy run because it would be too hard. So they walk. So walking can be a form of getting our endurance in. But getting back to the kids running, again, that's how the Tarahumara create their base. That's how they create their foundation, by playing the ball game, and they're sprinting and resting, sprinting and resting. And we tend to, some reason, do it the other way around, where we start to run slow for a long period of time and then build our speed, where we're promoting that, hey, speed is a big part of running healthy, running pain-free, and running joyfully.
Yeah. So circling back, where this book grew from was, initially with Born to Run back in 2004, 2005, and I went down to the Copper Canyon. I spent time with the Tarahumara. Our friend Micah True, who was living down there, wanted to create our 50-mile race. He felt that the Tarahumara were custodians of fantastic knowledge that the rest of the world could benefit from, but he did not want them being exploited. He did not want them being brought up into conventional American races where there would be more of a sideshow attraction. He's like, hey, these are the champions. The champions play on their home court. If you guys want to race at the Tarahumara, you come to their home court. And he also wanted an event that would be more than just what our racing has become, where a bunch of strangers kind of show up in a corral and someone fires a gun and they run and they have a water bottle and take a medal and go home, as strangers. He wanted people to really learn from each other and spend time together. And so he created this week-long kind of festival of eating and drinking, walking, hiking, running, exploring, culminating in this great race. And looking back, so much of what he understood turned out to be really true and important. And those were the kind of things we wanted to capture in Born to Run too. To me, it's like, it's not a prequel or a sequel. It's like an in-between quel. Like, this is all the knowledge that I wish I'd had at the time, because it was really what was happening around us when we were in the Copper Canyon, but I just wasn't experienced enough to absorb it.
Well, in a lot of ways, Caballo was so far ahead of his time, even though he was so backwards in his time. Looking back, with Mas Locos and how Mas Loco group grew, he was really kind of the first person to bring on the whole tribe and crew and create, the clubs out there that we had the fortune to go visit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, you go to any major running hub and there's 10, 15 crews, running around the parks in the city on any given day of any given week.
Well, that's another thing that we wanted to accomplish with this book. To me, being a fiery, annoyed soapbox preacher, there are two things which really rile me about the sport of running. And it's the focus on stuff that can be sold, packaged and sold. It's shoes and it's races. And from the time anybody wants to just dabble in running, they're constantly being besieged by shoes you got to buy, races you should be involved in. And listen, if somebody starts running because, hey, they want to run their first marathon, that's fantastic. That's terrific. Hey, I'm going to start running because, next year I really want to run the Los Angeles Marathon. Fantastic. That's a great thing. But unfortunately, there's so much is performance focused and based. And what I've been seeing that's been really fascinating and fun for me are the affinity groups that are more about community than about competition.
And, a lot of those affinity groups do have races attached. You're going to meet some in Honolulu this weekend. And I think what I've experienced when we went on the road in September and running with these groups is that, getting back to your point, I think there's maybe so much emphasis on crossing that finish line that people don't realize the most value of having any big goal is what happens along the way, of the people that you meet, all the training that you do. You can speak to that with your training with the Copper Canyon. All of that changed your life, changed all of our lives, and so it's so much about what goes on along the way. But this goes back to the message in the book too, of the awareness of what you're actually living day to day. That's so much more powerful.
Yeah. And that was cool too. So then starting to research Born to Run 2, initially my idea was going to be, I really want this to be a lot of bare bones, practical information. I wanted to be able to have everything laid out so that people can find the information they wanted. But we kept coming across these amazing stories that I thought, boy, they really need to be in here. Like our friend Karma Park. Karma is transgender. Karma originally had been in the Navy and was bounced out of the Navy because she could not do the minimum fitness run. And running had always, throughout her life, been associated with horrible stuff. It had been traumatic for her in school, traumatic for her getting bounced out of the Navy. She was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And the worst punishment for Karma would be having to run. She both physically hated it and emotionally had been scarred by it. And then when she was going through an especially ugly and painful divorce, her soon-to-be ex-wife, Karma felt so bad that she actually decided to punish her with the most nightmarish thing she could do. So she started running, just to beat herself up. And during that, she actually found a way to start to enjoy it. And the way forward for her was becoming inspired by none other than our friend Barefoot Ted. Barefoot Ted, who runs in his own homemade sandals like the Tarahumara. And Karma sort of found her way into the Barefoot Ted sphere and began running in minimalist shoes. And like that, everything for Karma began to change. And now Karma is deep into an 8-year running streak. Karma has not missed a day of running in 8 years.
Yeah. Now, I still think there's something that you guys have together that you relate so much to her story, because I feel you kind of had that same hurdle with your running, and you didn't give up. You didn't want to listen to people. You found a way, just like she found a way. And I think you guys have that bond together. That I kind of see in your eyes whenever you talk about her.
Yeah, so. I think, Karma, I think you're right. I think that she and I went through similar journeys, and that's why we really bond. And one thing I keep forgetting to mention too, Eric, is that there are all these little bits of lore and wisdom in the running history. They're just been forgotten, like kick scooters. So where I lived in Pennsylvania, the Amish use these kick scooters, and these were actually kind of instrumental. Matt Carpenter, who set and still holds the Leadville Trail 100 speed record, uses a kick scooter to train on. And there have been running coaches who have said, yeah, the scooter's perfect because it's actually going to teach you perfect running form. It's a great learning tool, but it's also a great recovery tool. But you never see these things. No one else talks about it. And to me, if one group has latched onto something and has been using it for a long time, to me, I want to ask the question, well, why? Why is it that the Amish like these scooters so much? And it's not just because, they are against internal combustion engines. There's lots of other ways. They have horse and buggies. Why are they using these scooters? And I think the reason why is because it promotes good all around holistic health.
Absolutely. And I think, from a coaching standpoint, maybe the take home for the listeners out there with the scooters is that it promotes exactly how you want to propel yourself forward. There's no lean. You're not using a lean to make the scooter go. You're actually pushing into the ground to make yourself go forward. And that's what we're doing with our run form and all the skills that we teach in the book. It's to propel yourself forward. That's, I think, so powerful. And who doesn't want to be on a scooter flying down the road? It's just, I think it gives that same vibe as what running does.
Yeah, that's what we were aiming for. Was we feel that there's a better way, not just a better way to do things, but a more fun way. And if it's more fun, you're going to enjoy it. If you enjoy it, you're going to want to do it more. And you do it more, you get better at it. I'm kind of just scanning down the questions. What I love is I feel like these questions are so tuned in with exactly our reasons for running the book. Like someone saying, hey, should you run with music or not? We have a whole chapter on that in the book. Someone who says that they want to run in minimal shoes, but they've been told not to do so because of their plantar fasciitis. A whole chapter on footwear for exactly that reason. I submit you have plantar fasciitis because you're not running in minimalist shoes. Do you remember this, Eric? I assume they still do it. They would say if you have plantar fasciitis to never go barefoot. Have you heard that?
Oh, every person I've have come to me to help them has heard that from one person or other, whether it's a medical practitioner practicing or whatever. Yeah. And it's all, as we talk about in the book, with wobbles and dysfunction like this, most people are treating the symptom and not the source. And especially for plantar fasciitis, you have to treat the source.
Yeah. But now again, it strikes me as absolutely baffling that a medical professional would tell somebody, oh, your foot is suffering, encase it in a shoe with an arch support. It's basically say, hey, oh, you have a broken leg, you're gonna need these crutches for the rest of your life. Like what, you never get off the crutches?
That's exactly what I was just thinking, is that here, don't free your foot, put it in a cast. I work with a guy who just had hip replacement. He was up and walking within 2 hours of surgery.
Well, dude, I saw you in Colton. We're out in the ranch, and like a dumbass, you go out and sprain your ankle the first day, and you torque the crap out of it. And next day, you're bopping along like no problem. And I'd had a similar accidental experience prior to that, where I'd sprained my ankle playing ball here in Hawaii. And coincidentally, we had great waves that weekend. And ordinarily, I would have been off my foot for 2 weeks. But I couldn't resist. Like, oh, these waves are really good. So I kind of went in the water a little bit. And I found that by being in the water, the sprained ankle got better really fast. And you're the one, and it happened to me again. I sprained my ankle again recently. And you said, get it moving, man. Move yourself as normally as possible, as soon as possible.
Yeah. Two things. One, very, very rarely, and this is a general statement, but very rarely is inactivity the best thing. Don't move. That's never really a good thing. And, and that's with a sprained ankle. I've sprained my ankle so many times, and the best thing that ever happened to me in that situation was that I was 4 or 5 miles away from my truck. So I had to get back, and just walking back completely cured the situation where, black and blue, you saw how black and blue my foot was in Colton. And, most people are going to go up on the sofa and elevate and ice it and immobilize it. And, that very rarely is the best thing.
And I think it really gets at the core of what you opened my eyes to, and it's become my sort of gospel since then, is that your body is giving you lots of great information, but we have lost the ability to interpret it. So, a few of the questions here about just running with music or minimal shoes or what's a good food to recommend or recipes. What we do in this book is show people ways of getting back to those early factory presets where we strip away a lot of the confusion about what's going on and show people how they can interpret what's actually good or worse for them. So I love the question about recommending a food, because rather than a food, why don't we recommend a food interpretation device you can use? So we have a thing in the book called the 2-week test, where we say strip out all of the processed high glycemic foods, all the bread, rice, pasta, sugars, desserts, even fruits, all the things that will jack up your blood sugars. Get rid of them for 14 days. And after 14 days, reintroduce them. So have a piece of fruit, see how you feel. If you feel sluggish and bloated, hey, that's too much for you. Eat a half a bagel, see how you feel. If you feel fine, terrific. If you feel sluggish and bloated, it's too much for you. And so rather than recommending specific foods, what we're recommending is dial back in to the understanding of how these things are affecting you.
Yeah, and affecting how you feel, because in the two week test, that's long enough for you to start to feel immediate changes, and then it becomes a decision for you how you want to cycle through and create a balance for your daily life that you can kind of take through the whole year rather than just the 2 weeks. So again, it's that awareness. Athleticism is awareness. All great athletes have a good awareness, and that's something that we all can have. And I feel that's the most elite talent any athlete can have, that we all can have, is having that awareness.
Yeah, I mean, I think it speaks to your point about how to deal with the sprained ankle. Everything we look at, like listening to music while you run, or dealing with the sprained ankle, or wearing maximalist shoes, a lot of those responses are designed to cocoon you from the experience. So again, if you ever get injured or hurt, they say, rest it, don't use it, immobilize it. Well, that is cutting you off from the experience. You don't know exactly how your body is going to respond until you sample it. So you're saying you have a sprained ankle, walk on it, get it moving, get the blood flowing, and see. It doesn't mean, I'm going to fight through the pain. It's actually testing your body to see how it's going to respond. Running with music, we were actually undecided about this because you and I fervently believe, do not run with music. It is shutting yourself off from valuable input. Yet there are a lot of runners that we super respect that run with music, and they're better runners than I am. So I'm like, I can't say that they're wrong. Carl Meltzer is setting an Appalachian Trail record. Listen to the Ramones. I'm not going to tell Carl Meltzer he's wrong, So what's going on? And what we eventually landed on is asking yourself, what is the music or the shoe or the device supposed to do? Is it actually enhancing your run? In that case, great. Or is it trying to block out and distract you from the run? In which case, it's a step backward.
Yeah, and I think for me, you know how much I love music, and I always go to running provides a very, very spiritual experience for me, and so does music. And if I'm using them both at the same time, they kind of cancel each other out. So I need one or the other. And I think that goes back to the injury thing. Is a lot of times, so many people are popping ibuprofen and painkillers, and don't do that so you can feel the improvement. And so again, it's you have any thoughts on cryotherapy for injuries? Is that my answer to that? Maybe is, again, get away from that use of injury. Is it an injury or something that you can correct through form and strength and how you're using your body?
Yeah, that's a huge point. Matter of fact, you don't even like using the word injury. You like the word dysfunction. And again, I think that's a crucial distinction. An injury is something like a broken leg. All right, you know what? That leg is literally broken. It will not function. As opposed to, well, your Achilles is sore, your heel is sore, your groin is sore. If it's a discomfort, because that discomfort is terrifically useful. It's your body telling you something. I use the example where I was having groin issues. Like, I'm out for a run, man, goddamn groin's cramping up. Like, what's going on here? I had lost focus on my running form, and I was not really popping my knee crisply. I was just kind of dragging the leg. Well, my leg weighs like 60 pounds. And so for me to drag that leg along with my hip and my groin is putting a lot of strain on that part of my body. And so that was not an injury. That was discomfort caused by the fact that I was doing something wrong. And then when I changed the behavior, problem solved.
Yep. And I think, that kind of just goes back to the whole run form, and kind of even going back to full circle with the stretching question of, where we feel it is so much not the problem. So you could go into the doctor and say, hey, my groin hurts. He's going to say, take time off until your groin pain goes away. But then you're going to start running again. That groin pain is going to start until you change the behavior. Like you've said on the outset of this talk, is that we have to see all those wobbles and all that dysfunction and all that discomfort as a sign for us to change a behavior. And if we
Yeah.
mask that discomfort, it's not providing its purpose for us. See it as a purpose for you to improve.
I feel like we're setting the wrong tone a little bit in our conversation because we're so earnest
Yeah.
that, two of the chapters, which I think were super fundamental, are family and fun.
Yeah.
And those are actually problematic chapters to put in the book about running because I feel like it almost discredits you. Like, oh, you're not serious because you're talking about family and fun. But I think from an evolutionary standpoint, these were two critical elements in our evolution as runners. We are communal runners. In our prehistoric past, you would never go out and run by yourself because you never come back. And also, anything that is associated with pain and discomfort is something that organism is not going to continue. If fish did not enjoy swimming, there'd be no fish. I'm sure birds get a kick out of floating on the air. They turned it into fun. And humans likewise. Running is what we do best. And we are creating a big mistake if we forget to tap into that fun and family aspect of it.
And I love that analogy. I think if there's ever one of the free 7 categories that trumps everything is that free, or that is that fun, is that, hey, if we dial into all the other things, we're going to have fun running and it's going to make us want to do it more.
Yeah. Sure, I got what's one last example, but when we were visiting, our friend Allison Desir has a book that I'm sure Book Passage has called Running While Black. Fantastic book. And Allison created Harlem Run up in Marcus Garvey Park in Harlem. And we went there for a Monday night run. And overwhelming, dude, was that just not the most fun?
Yeah. Oh, I always get asked, where's my favorite place to run? And my mind automatically goes to the Grand Canyon or the Tetons where I live, or, Nicaragua. But ultimately, it's all those places that are new to me, like going down in the middle of Harlem and running with 200 people. To me, that was the most epic run ever.
Yeah. Harlem is our new destination spot for a run because they've made it a group. They made it fun. They're running hard, but they're running fun. They're running free.
Yeah.
Running happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this has been such an amazing hour. Here's the book. You heard Christopher's going to send us some book plates. So for
today.
Okay. So we've got plenty of books in the store. We are happy to put those book plates in. We're going to gift wrap the books. What an amazing gift for the runners in your life, either you or friends and family that would love to have this book. It's a holiday time. It's just the perfect gift. Eric Orton, Christopher McDougall, you both are superstars. You are inspiring us. We are so thrilled that you were able to spend an hour with us and our Book Passage community this afternoon. Again, we are huge fans of the book. We also have the original, The Born to Run, that is also in the store. So please, again, thank you so much to our guests and to our customer base out there. Come on in and get the book. We are so happy to bring you these free virtual events, and your support of buying the book from Book Passage is greatly appreciated. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone. Go out and run and buy your books at Book Passage.
Thanks, Book Passage.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.